This is awesome. Sweet. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Sorry, give me a second. I was taking way too long trying to figure out how to set all of this up. Um, so I think I can hopefully see everyone on here. Um, Give me one moment, guys. I am going to get a second view of this. So that I can, yeah, just kind of watch myself. Well, I'm not able to pull it up right now. Why can I not pull up? All right, y'all, give me a second here. Still learning how to set all this up. All right, well, hopefully you guys can see what's going on. Yes, he has given me the option to open it in the app, but I'm just not going to. Um, yeah, it's just strange. It's not letting me access it, so I'm wondering if this is actually a live feed to YouTube or not. That's that's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, sweet. Wonderful. So if I just go, will I see that on mine? I sure will. Cool. Awesome. Sounds good. Um, yeah, awesome. I am good to go then. Alrighty. So yeah, I think we're just gonna be on Google. That way, in case anything needs to change, I can just swap between. I can just swap between. And I'm just trying to make sure that this all turns out good for YouTube. But you guys can let me know if for whatever reason you guys are like, hey, like, it was really weird watching your stream, like it wasn't set up properly. You guys can feel free to let me know. So, alrighty. So, yeah, let me just recap real quick because I had started the stream earlier and then I had to make some changes. So, yeah, so the main point of this podcast is going to be just to watch, or this live stream will be to watch different podcasts talking about Christianity, more specifically, just whatever is new and fresh, so I can show you guys how I got to this screen. It might look slightly different on like Spotify or other apps, but basically you just go to search. You got all of these different subjects. Then you click on religion and spirituality, and then of course, given our channel name, we're going to go straight to Christianity because that's the religion that we belong to. Got our cute cross there, and then here we've got all of the different shows. What's popping, what isn't popping. And like I said in my last stream, usually Bible reading plans that are like throughout the whole year are going to be the most popular because these are the shows that people will usually watch as like their daily devotionals whenever they're doing their Bible reading for the day. But then you got a bunch of other stuff here. So yeah, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and just get started. So Father Mike Schmitz is an amazing Catholic priest. I will also lower this so that hopefully my glasses aren't like fogging my eyes. So really quick recap. I'm a non-denominational Christian, and now I don't mean that in the macro sense that like I attend a non-denominational church and all of that stuff, because really saying you're a non-denominational Christian nowadays is just its own denomination. Like they have their own set of beliefs as well. But I'm a true non-denominational Christian in its purest form and its most literal sense of I've gone to seminary, I've worked in a bunch of different churches before, and so I've really been able to grab and pick the good elements from every single denomination. But I certainly don't align with just one. And really, I think what you guys will soon realize is that really none of us are like that. A lot of the times, this is like politics, where people will try to put you into certain camps, but the reality is, once you do your own research, you realize like, hey, you know what? I actually kind of agree with a little bit of everything. Now, you might have a certain camp that you agree with mostly, but again, just like, for example, like in politics, when you actually do your research, you realize you don't just fully agree with one side. You kind of pick and choose certain elements from everyone. So all that to say, if I had to pick one, I would probably say that I'm a Catholic. It's certainly the doctrine that I align with the most. Certainly not on everything, but on a lot of things I do. And so big shout out to Father Mike and really the whole Ascension company, because they're the ones who brought me in, and it was actually through this Bible reading plan. So I thought, what more of a fitting way to do this? But as you guys can see, I mean, they have 60K reviews. These guys are pretty good at what they do. So there's also a reason why they're the number one most listened to Christian podcast on a day-to-day basis. So anyways, enough recap, enough of a introduction. We're gonna go ahead and just get started with what the reading plan is today. And even though we're gonna be kind of just jumping into the middle of it, I think it'll all still be fine. So what I'm going to do is I pulled up their own Bible here. So we have like the exact same reading plan. So if you guys are just following along, you guys can just follow on my screen. And then we're going to talk about it ourselves once this episode is over. So yeah, with that being said, we are going to go ahead and get started here. Dope. Alrighty. Let's do it. Let's do it. Cool. I wanted to make sure you guys could hear the audio. We're good.
My name is Father Mike Schmitz, and you're listening to the Bible into Your podcast.
Hello, Father Mike.
Edition. In fact,
also, I said a lot of this at my first stream, and now I'm like having to remind myself to say it all again. So I'm going to be starting off by listening to podcasts, but feel free to say anything in the chat of like other reactions you'd want me to give, whether it's like a YouTube video or whether it's another podcast episode, and I'll even write that in the chat right now. Awesome. So I have that in the chat as well. Cool beans. All right, let's officially get started.
Using the Great Adventure Bible.
We're gonna skip this.
Then the Lord said to Moses,
Oh, here we go. Okay, so we are in Exodus 9. So I'm going to go back slightly.
all of them yet were at a
Um,
right smack dab in the middle of them. With Exodus chapter 9.
Exodus chapter 9, y'all. Here we go.
Exodus chapter 9.
Also, there's like, yeah, so they're going through the Bible timeline, which is just like this huge, huge, like center of just information. So if any of you guys are more interested into going deeper into with Ascension study materials, definitely look into them. Because they have entire recaps for every single chapter. I mean, these guys go into depth about everything. And so, yeah, all that to say, like, if you guys are looking into diving deeper into the Bible and not just reading it, but really like getting deep into like all the information that the Bible has to offer, this is a great resource. Uh, yeah, and they kind of beat the stereotype when people say that, you know, Catholics don't read their Bible. It's like, well, these guys are killing it. But yeah, let's get started.
Then the Lord said to Moses, go into Pharaoh and say to him, thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of the Lord will fall with a very severe plague upon your cattle, which are in your field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks. But the Lord will make a distinction between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, so that nothing shall die of all that belongs to the sons of Israel. And the Lord set a time, saying, tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land. And the next day the Lord did this thing. All the cattle of the Egyptians died, but of the cattle of the sons of Israel, not one died. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, not one of the cattle of the Israelites was dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron,
Quick context. Again, we're kind of just starting in the middle of a story. We're starting in chapter 9. I believe some of the quick context is Pharaoh is like this very evil leader who has rejected God, and God has told him to not reject him, but to follow him. Um, if not, you know, you are to be set upon your own destruction. In other words, if you don't follow the wisdom of the Lord, you know, his instructions for us are for our own benefit, and he knows what's best for us. And so when we don't listen to him, naturally we are on a path that is not as great as the path that he had for us. And in this case, it was a very destructive path for Pharaoh. He was just being very disobedient to the Lord. And so here come about all of these plagues. So that's what I was talking about here. The fifth plague, the death of the Egyptians' livestock. And instead of that being enough to scare Pharaoh to go back to God, it says, you know, the heart of Pharaoh was hardened and he did not let his people go. So in other words, he's being stubborn and he's like, well, no, like, you know, like this just makes me want to reject God even more. And I'm not going to let my people go. And so here about again comes more destruction because in case you don't know, there's this whole idea that nature itself proclaims the word of God because God made it all. And so when you reject God, he's going to make nature reject against you as well. Hence, having all these plagues being sent towards you. And again, Pharaoh wasn't just this guy who had like rejected God. He had like again, we're skipping a lot of information here. But I think at one point he had like tried to kill a bunch of babies who weren't Egyptians or something along those lines. Again, don't quote me, but if you go back and read the first couple chapters of Exodus, it tells you pretty quickly who Pharaoh is, and he's not like this nice person. He's like a very wicked, evil person who's just like the ruler of Egypt at that time. And so God was telling him, "Hey, dude, like you gotta chill, or I'm gonna send about all this destruction upon you." And he was like, "I don't care. I'm not gonna stop. Like I want power and I want authority over people." And God was like, "All right, well, here comes the destruction." So
take handfuls of ashes from the kiln, and let Moses throw them toward heaven in the sight of Pharaoh, and it shall become fine dust over all the land of Egypt, and become boils breaking out in sores on man and beast throughout all the land of Egypt. So they took ashes from the kiln and stood before Pharaoh. And Moses threw them toward heaven, and it became boils breaking out in sores on man and beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boils were upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them, as the Lord had spoken to Moses.
So here we have another really interesting concept, which is that that the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh. Now, we'll hear Father Mike talk more about this, I believe, but I think this can be interpreted in two different ways. Um, and I'll even highlight what I'm talking about. This can be interpreted in two different ways, I believe. I believe the first interpretation is this can just be like a non-literal way of God, of the Bible saying that God allowed him to have his heart be more hardened. Or you can read it a little bit more literal and say, no, like the Lord hardened his own heart. In other words, saying God has a plan for all of us. Um, and this kind of gets into this really interesting territory, but it's kind of hinting at this idea that even the bad people in this world, God has destined them for their wickedness in order so that people like us can distinguish bad people from good people. So sometimes you could argue, like for example in this passage, that God allows certain people to be evil because they have the freedom to choose, and if they choose to be evil, then they're choosing to be evil. But secondly, if that's what they're after and that's what God has in a way destined for them, then it allows everyone else to see someone so evil and say, yeah, I'm going to turn away and go towards God. A really easy expression that I like to use about this is like, for example, um, if I were to like go out to the street right now when it's daytime and grab a candle, no one would care. They'd be like, "Dude, what? I can't even like see what you're holding. Is it a candle?" But if I were to go out into if I were to go out into the street like in the middle of the night and hold a candle, everyone would be like, "Oh shoot, wait, there's someone over there. Like I can see it from like a pretty good distance away." Um, or you could say a flashlight or whatever. The point is sometimes our environment needs to be bad in order for us to really appreciate and distinguish the holiness of God. If everyone and everything was just good all the time, then we would all be like, well, why do I have to choose God if everything's already good? Why would I follow him when I could just do anything? It's all going to be good. But when you have a very clear distinction of like there's bad things that happen in this world and there's good things that happen in this world, it helps you choose God because when you're in a room that's dark and then you see the light, you're like, okay, I'm very attracted to that light. I'm gonna follow it. So I hope that made sense. Hopefully it did for some of you guys. I know probably for other people you might just be even more confused. But yeah, again, you can look more into it yourselves. But that's the way I kind of put it as to why God it hints at it in the Bible that God would sometimes destine certain people and allow them to be bad people. I would argue that it's for a reason. He has a motive behind it.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Rise up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go that they may serve me. For this time I will send all my plagues upon your heart and upon your servants and your people, that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth. For by now I could have put forth my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been cut off from the earth. But for this purpose have I let you live, to show you my power, so that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. You are still exalting yourself against my people, and will not let them go. Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause very heavy hail to fall, such as never has been in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. Now therefore, get your cattle and all that you have in the field into safe shelter, for the hail shall come down upon every man and beast that is in the field and is not brought home, and they shall die.' Then he who feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh made his slaves and his cattle flee into the houses. But he who did not regard the word of the Lord left his slaves and his cattle in the field. And the Lord said..."
So let me go back to that again real quick. Then he who feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh made his slaves and his cattle flee into the houses. But he who did not regard the word of the Lord left his slaves and his cattle in the field. So again, this is just another example of God saying like, hey, follow my way. And it gives them the freedom to choose. But you can see that there's a distinction. Some people choose to follow him. Some people don't choose to follow him. Even from the beginning of time, we had that. That's not like a modern issue. People have always not only disobeyed God out of ignorance. A lot of people actually do know what they're supposed to do, what God asks us to do, and they just choose to reject it. So they're both bad, but you can see that there is a distinction between those who are disobedient by accident and they're like, oh, I genuinely had no idea, and then those who choose to disobey just because they don't want to change their ways. They don't want to repent. They don't want to change at all who they are.
Moses, Stretch forth your hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon man and beast and every plant of the field throughout the land of Egypt. Then Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and fire ran down to the earth. And the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. There was hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail, very much hail, such as has never been in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. The hail struck down everything that was in the field throughout all the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and the hail struck down every plant of the field, and shattered every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the sons of Israel were, there was no hail. Then Pharaoh sent and called Moses and Aaron and said to them, I have sinned this time. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Entreat the Lord, for there has been enough of this thunder and hail. I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. Moses said to him, As soon as I have gone out of the city, I will stretch out my hands to the Lord. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, that you may know that the earth is the Lord's. But as for you and your servant,
That's what I was saying before, like how nature is a part of God's creation. It's very obedient. And we see a lot of passages later that talk about that. But we see that here as well, where Moses is saying, you know, that the earth is the Lord's and whatnot. I accidentally clicked off of it, my bad.
Hi, my name's Father Mike Schmitz,
Hi,
and
Father
you're
Mike.
listening to everything that was in the field throughout all the land of Egypt, both
Sorry,
man and
guys.
beast.
Give me a
And the
second.
hail struck down every plant of the field, and shattered every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the sons of Israel
Okay, here we
were,
go. We're
there
right
was
here.
no hail.
I
Then
almost
Pharaoh
got that
sent
exactly.
and called Moses and Aaron and said to them, I have sinned this time. The Lord is in the right, and I and my people are in the wrong. Entreat the Lord, for there has been enough of this thunder and hail. I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. Moses said to him, As soon as I have gone out of the city, I will stretch out my hands to the Lord. The thunder will cease, and there will be no more hail, that you may know that the earth is the Lord's. But as for you and your servants, I know that you do not yet fear the Lord God. The flax and the barley were ruined, for the barley was in the ear, and the flax was in the bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not ruined, for they are late in coming up. So Moses went out of the city from Pharaoh, and stretched out his hands to the Lord, and the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain no longer poured upon the earth. But when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder had ceased, he sinned yet again, and hardened his heart, he and his servants. So the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the sons of Israel go, as the Lord had spoken through Moses.
So again, this confirms two things. See right here, it says that he hardened his own heart. He sinned yet again and hardened his heart. He and his servants. So also kind of hinting at this idea that, you know, when you're the leader of someone and you're disobedient to God, it can cause those around you to also be like, yeah, you know what, we don't have to listen as well. We're all in agreement. This also points at the idea that God can speak through people. So just keep that in mind.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 7.
Now, real quick for Leviticus, I've never actually read this book, like from front to back, so this will be a first for me as well. The main thing you gotta know about Leviticus is like it's a really memed on book because it's just like the law book. It's one of the law books that no one ever wants to read. It's just really boring. It's just a bunch of rules. The main reason why it's in our Bibles is because it helps us realize just how difficult it was to live a religious life in the Old Covenant. It really gives you gratitude for Jesus because without him, we'd still have to be following these rules. And it really just gives you an appreciation for how easy we have it. Sometimes people will complain, like, there's so many rules in Christianity. And it's like, well, read Leviticus and then tell me if there's really that many rules. Because back before the new covenant of Jesus, before he had come on earth and, you know, the Israelites were living, they had to follow all these rules. And so we really have it very easy. And again, for quick theology, in case you're wondering, so did Jesus like replace the law? There's actually an entire passage that talks about this. So Jesus never came to replace the law, he came to fulfill it. So the reason why we don't have to follow this anymore isn't because God was just like, okay, I've changed my mind. We no longer have to follow these rules. It was that Jesus had followed all of these rules and more, things that we could have never even accomplished ever in our lives. And so if we follow him and we place our faith in him, the law is already found in him. So we are already obeying these laws, so to speak, by following him.
This is the law of the guilt offering. It is most holy. In the place where they kill the burnt offering, they shall kill the guilt offering, and its blood shall be thrown on the altar round about, and all its fat shall be offered, the fat tail, the fat that covers the entrails, the 2 kidneys with the fat that is on them at the loins, and the appendage of the liver, which he shall take away with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as an offering by fire to the Lord. It is a guilt offering. Every male among the priests may eat of it. It shall be eaten in a holy place. It is most holy. The guilt offering is like the sin offering. There is one law for them. The priest who makes atonement with it shall have it. And the priest who offers any man's burnt offering shall have for himself the skin of the burnt offering which he has offered. And every cereal offering baked in the oven, and all that is prepared on a pan or a griddle, shall belong to the priest who offers it. And every cereal offering mixed with oil or dry shall be for all the sons of Aaron, one as well as another. And this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which one may offer to the Lord. For if he offers it for a thanksgiving, then he shall offer it with the thank offering, unleavened cakes mixed with oil, unleavened wafers spread with oil, and cakes of fine flour well mixed with oil. With the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving, he shall bring his offering with cakes of leavened bread. And of such he shall offer 1 cake from each offering, as an offering to the Lord. It shall belong to the priest who throws the blood of the peace offerings, and the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving shall be eaten on the day of his offering. He shall not leave any of it until the morning. But if the sacrifice of his offering is a votive offering or a free will offering, it shall be eaten on the day that he offers his sacrifice. And the next day, what remains of it shall be eaten. But what remains of the flesh of the sacrifice on the 3rd day shall be burned with fire. If any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings is eaten on the 3rd day, he who offers it shall not be accepted, neither shall it be credited to him. It shall be an abomination, and he who eats of it shall bear his iniquity. Flesh that touches any unclean thing shall not be eaten. It shall be burned with fire. All who are clean may eat flesh, but the person who eats of the flesh of the sacrifice of the Lord's peace offerings, while an uncleanness is on him, that person shall be cut off from his people. And if anyone touches an unclean thing, whether the uncleanness of man or an unclean beast or an unclean abomination, and then eats of the flesh of the sacrifice of the Lord's peace offerings, that person shall be cut off from his people. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the people of Israel, you shall eat no fat of ox or sheep or goat, the fat of an animal that dies of itself, and the fat of one that is torn to beasts may be put to any other use, but on no account shall you eat it."
So real quick, this is where we get more of these kosher laws that you may have heard of, and so the modern Jewish people of our day and age are they're the same people who this book was addressed to, but they're the ones who don't believe that Jesus was really God. He was just some false prophet. And so if you have any Jewish friends like I do, they'll even tell you like they still follow all of these kosher laws today. So it's really interesting, but it's also hard to like take them out for food because they need to like make sure that like wherever they're eating, the food is prepared properly.
For every person who eats of the fat of an animal, of which an offering by fire is made to the Lord, shall be cut off from his people. Moreover, you shall eat no blood whatever, whether of fowl or of animal, in any of your dwellings. Whoever eats any blood, that person shall be cut off from his people. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the sons of Israel, he that offers the sacrifice of his peace offerings to the Lord shall bring his offering to the Lord from his sacrifice of his peace offerings. He shall bring with his own hands the offerings by fire to the Lord. He shall bring the fat with the breast, that the breast may be waved as a wave offering before the Lord. The priest shall burn the fat on the altar, but the breast shall be for Aaron and his sons. and the right thigh you shall give to the priest as an offering from the sacrifice of your peace offerings. He among the sons of Aaron who offers the blood of the peace offerings and the fat shall have the right thigh for a portion. For the breast that is waved and the thigh that is offered, I have taken from the sons of Israel out of the sacrifices of their peace offerings, and have given them to Aaron the priest and to his sons as a perpetual debt from the sons of Israel. This is the portion of Aaron and of his sons from the offerings made by fire to the Lord, consecrated to them on the day that they were presented to serve as priests of the Lord. The Lord commanded this to be given them by the sons of Israel on the day that they were anointed. It is a perpetual debt throughout their generations. This is the law of the burnt offering, of the cereal offering, of the sin offering, of the guilt offering, of the consecration, and of the peace offerings, which the Lord commanded Moses on Mount Sinai on the day.
Now, in case you're also wondering, why is it formatted this way? Why does it feel so legal? These books were in a way kind of like the books of law that we have nowadays. So now we have like all of these like amendments, and you can find most of it online, like just like what are like my state's gun laws, for example, and you can find a whole PDF of like, however many pages it is, whether it's like tens or hundreds of pages that talk about gun laws. These were law books. So people would grab like these scrolls and unroll them, and they'd read these laws. If there was someone who had to like go to court because they were accused of breaking one of these rules. So these were like quite literally like legal documents. But again, a lot of people back then, and we don't do this anymore, unfortunately, but especially back then, most of people's laws took into consideration what God had already spoken to those people. We don't see that as much anymore. In fact, not really at all. But especially back then, most moral and ethical laws were established with what first God had said, and then people could add to it if there was like some nuance. And to an extent, we still do this because we still have like murder laws, and we still have like the obvious things that you would think like, oh yeah, like that's obviously illegal. It most likely came from the Bible, and it had then been established within society. But now people would just say it's common knowledge. But again, even then, like this is where we get moral objectivity from and not subjectivity. So if you think moral is subjective, you think that it depends, that it's like, then it's every person has their own opinion on what morality really is, and it depends on where you live and what time and place you were alive at. And objective morality, which is what Christians believe in, is that morality has nothing to do with the time that you are alive or where you live. Morality applies to me the same it did to a Christian 1,000 years ago in Europe, the same way it will to another Christian 1,000 years from now in Africa. Like we all, no matter what the time or culture is, we follow these laws. Now, not these laws, but you get what I mean. We follow the Christian laws. So, and it's not just because like I said so, or because this one really smart person said so. It's because God said so. That's why I think murder is wrong, not just because we've come to agreement nowadays that murder is bad, but because God himself said it's bad to murder someone else for no reason. And so that's why Christians believe that. So it seems small, but it really is an important distinction to make. So yeah.
He commanded the sons of Israel to bring their offerings to the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai.
And I got a psalm here, I'm pretty sure.
Psalm 49. The folly of trust in riches, to the choir master, a psalm of the sons of Korah. Hear this, all peoples. Give ear, all inhabitants of the world, both low and high, rich and poor together. My mouth shall speak wisdom. The meditation of my heart shall be understanding. I will incline my ear to a proverb. I will solve my riddle to the music of the lyre. Why should I fear in times of trouble? When the iniquity of my persecutors surrounds me, men who trust in their wealth and boast in the abundance of their riches. Truly, no man can ransom himself or give to God the price of his life. For the ransom of his life is costly and can never suffice, that he should continue to live on forever and never see the pit. Yes, he shall see that even the wise die. The fool and the stupid alike must perish and leave their wealth to others. Their graves are their homes forever, their dwelling places to all generations, though they named lands for their own. Man cannot abide in this pomp. He is like the beasts that perish. This is the fate of those who have foolish confidence, the end of those who are pleased with their portion. Like sheep, they are appointed for Sheol. Death
What's
shall be their
this?
shepherd. Straight to the grave they descend, and their form shall waste away. Sheol shall be their home. But God will ransom my soul from the power of Sheol, for he will receive me. Be not afraid
Has
when
it here
one
too.
becomes rich,
Hmm.
when the glory of his
I don't know
house
what that is.
increases. For when he dies, he will carry nothing away. His glory will not go down after him. Though while he lives, he counts himself happy, as though a man gets praised when he does well for himself. He will go to the generations of his father, who will never more see the light. Man cannot abide in his pomp. He is like the beasts that perish.
Okay.
Father in heaven,
Now, we will hear a quick prayer from Father Mike, and then he will give his commentary on just his thoughts. So I can't pull up the actual captions, I don't think. But we can just listen. That's totally fine.
we praise and we thank you for your word. We thank you for speaking to us today and for sharing your heart with us. We continue to thank you for your willingness to fight, your willingness to wrestle, not just against us, Lord, and not just with us, but to wrestle for us, to enter into our lives with your grace, with your goodness, and with your power. Lord, we ask that you please conquer us by your love, conquer us by your grace. Help us to surrender and to submit our minds and our hearts, our entire lives to your reign. You are the King. You are the God of everything, and we give you praise. In Jesus' name, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. So one of the questions that comes up a lot when we read the book of Exodus and we get to the 10 plagues of Israel, one of the questions is, so why is God hardening Pharaoh's heart? What is it?
Okay, so that's exactly what I was saying. So we should be getting an answer here. Also, I think I will open this in the actual podcast app. I think it will be better there. Because we can actually see the subtitles. Yes, because this is, again, I don't have all the answers. I am genuinely curious as to what his response to that question is.
Pharaoh's heart. What does it mean that it says that God hardens Pharaoh's heart? Because there's two different expressions that are used. There's times when Scripture says that the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and there's other times when it says Pharaoh hardened his own heart.
That's what I was saying too. Do you guys remember that? Where I was like, hopefully this will update to where we are. Remember that I said that? How it said how I had literally pointed that out before. That's funny that he mentions that, because I don't know if you guys remember. I pointed that out too, where I was like, that's kind of interesting. It says that God hardened his own heart, and then it said that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. So I wonder, like, what the distinction is.
So what does that mean? Well, one of the things that it doesn't mean is that God took away Pharaoh's free will. It does not mean that God overwhelmed Pharaoh, like Pharaoh was gonna let the people of Israel go, but God said, nope, I want to teach you a lesson or something like this. That's not what's going on here. What's going on is, I've heard it explained this way, that God is always good, right? So God is goodness itself. God is truth itself. God is life itself. God is mercy itself. And the only thing he emits, essentially, are those things: truth and goodness and mercy and life and love and joy. It's kind of like the sun. So here's the sun. The sun emits light and heat. And so in the presence of the sun, in the presence of the sun's heat, wax melts. Wax becomes soft in the presence of the sun. But clay hardens in the presence of the sun. It's in many ways about the disposition of the heart. If my heart is open to the Lord, if my heart is even if it's slightly hard, but it is made of wax, like I've said, no, I actually want to do your will, Lord. If my heart is wax, it becomes melted in the presence of the Lord. It becomes softened in the presence of the Lord. But if my heart is clay, it becomes hardened in the presence of the Lord. And so here is God who's revealing himself, right? He's revealing his power to the people of Israel and to the people of Egypt. He's revealing himself to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is getting to know that this is a God who is beyond all of the gods. We'll talk about that tomorrow. He's a God who conquers other gods. And yet Pharaoh obstinately and stubbornly refuses to acknowledge him. God is obviously demonstrating his reality. He's obviously demonstrating his power. He's obviously demonstrating the fact that he is on the side of the people of Israel. And Pharaoh, in the sight of that, Pharaoh hardens his heart. And in the sight of that, in presence of that, Pharaoh allows his heart to become hardened by God's presence and by God's power and by God's goodness fighting for his own people. And that's the question we have to ask. See, it's easy if we say, well, God hardened Pharaoh's heart, and we think of it in the terms we probably would think of it on the face. But when we realize that no, God never overwhelms someone's free will. He always works with our free will in a mystery of grace. I don't know how that works, but it works. But God always retains our free will.
That's the $1 million question, right? It's like, it works. I don't know how it works, but it works. It is really difficult to try to understand that on how, by what Father Mike is saying or suggesting is that we all have the freedom to choose whatever we want, and God will just he'll let us do that. So if Pharaoh wanted his heart to be hardened, then that's why God was hardening it, and that actually does make sense.
And he works with it. Then we have to realize, oh, does this happen in my life, where I find my heart becoming hardened in God's presence, that God has revealed himself to me at other times. But right now, when maybe I don't get the blessing that I'm looking for, right now when I'm going through dark times, right now when I'm struggling, maybe that's when I begin to harden my own heart to the Lord. Maybe in his presence I harden my heart, or maybe even in his silence I harden my heart. The challenge is to never let our hearts become hardened to the Lord. The challenge would be that I always have a heart that is soft.
Yeah, I mean, we'll always just be willing to obey him so that, you don't get what you're asking for. Or you do, and hopefully you want more of the Lord, not less of the Lord.
When it comes to the Lord's presence and his power and his will for my life. That's why we need each other. We need prayers with each other. We need to be able to lift each other up because of the fact that this is difficult. In fact, without God's action of grace, it is impossible. So let's pray for each other as we continue. Now we're fully into the second month of journeying through the Bible, this Bible in a Year podcast. My name is Father Mike, so let's keep praying for each other. I am praying for you. Please pray for me, and I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. God bless.
Well, that's nice. So now we'll go back. Again, if you guys have any questions, just leave them in the chat. I feel a sneeze coming. Woo! Make sure we're still rolling here. Yeah? No, we're chilling. We've been going for 43 minutes, guys. I will refresh the chat as if there's anything new. There's nothing new here. Oh, this is trippy. I'm not gonna click play. If I click play, it's just gonna mess everything up. I'm not gonna click play. But that's funny. Cool. Alrighty. And close this guy. And yeah, cool. Alrighty. In that case, we're gonna move on to the Bible recap, which I think is just it's gonna be our last, some might say boring part of the stream, but it might also be the most intentional time because we're actually talking about the Bible strictly. I think these next few episodes are all just Christianity in general, but we're not talking specifically about the Bible. Like if I click on this guy, I think I've seen his channel like online. I think this guy's just like a pastor. Oh geez. Oh geez, going over all the controversial stuff. Cool. Oh, I think I did see this. He had a whole reaction of he was reacting to, yeah, Rhett from, whoa, let me not click play. Do not play. He's reacting to,
When you
think he
become a
had, like,
secular person and you reject the idea of
I think he was like critiquing Christianity. So, anyways, I think he was getting a reaction to what Rhett was saying. Rhett was this guy from Good Mythical Morning, in case you don't know. He has a whole presence on YouTube. But yeah. Cool. Well, we're gonna go ahead. We're actually gonna listen to this guy and take a quick break from just reading straight Bible stuff, and then we'll get back to the Bible recap. I do want to search this guy up though on YouTube because I think he has like an actual live video, which might just be a little bit more interactive than just watching words on the screen. So, yeah. Well, let me even see if I do this. Bible in a year, Father Mike Schmitz. Yeah, they're just podcast episodes. I want to make sure that I wasn't missing out, but yeah, no. This is all the same. This is just interactive podcast stuff. Cool. Okay, so I already forgot this guy's name. Josh Howerton. Is that, am I pronouncing? I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but so I think he has an actual.
When you become a secular person and you
32 minutes and 14 seconds. 32 minutes and 14. Yeah, okay, so it's the same thing. This is just like a video version. Let's just watch the video version. And I will be giving my live commentary to all of this. So I have not seen this. Funny enough, I saw this on my feed, and I didn't even know who this guy was, but I guess he's like a pretty big podcaster. So this will be a good reaction. I have not seen this. So this will be fun. And yeah, sweet. Let's get to it.
you reject the idea of God, now there actually is no power higher than the government, so the government becomes God.
That's actually really ironic considering what we just read. So remember I told you guys Leviticus was a legal book that the Israelites had back then. And although it was a way for them to, keep each other in check, ultimately that authority came from God. So whenever you strip God away, the government then becomes your God, which is what I was saying before, right? If people don't build their morality on Christianity, then they usually base their morality off of whatever legal system they live in. But that's flawed because laws always change, cultures always change, social norms always change. So clearly that can't be where morality comes from because morality should be a concrete thing. I hope that makes a little bit more sense, but what he just said right there is it's pretty deep, but it actually, it does make sense. It aligns with logic.
Then politics becomes religion, candidates become saviors, rallies become worship services, and campaigning becomes evangelism.
Yeah, that's all true. I mean, he said that really quick. It's kind of hard to digest everything he just said right there, but yeah, I mean that's all pretty true.
All right, welcome to Live Free Nation to another test.
We'll go ahead and subscribe to this guy too. Or we'll wait. I don't want to be mean. Let's watch this video, and if we like it, then we can subscribe.
Drive of a react episode. Today we're going to be reacting to
Hey, we're reacting to a reaction of another video. This is the YouTube. This is the new YouTube meta. We're reacting. And if someone reacts to this, they're going to be reacting to me reacting to someone reacting to Rhett. It's crazy.
a little Rhett and Link talking about
so real quick, I can even show you guys Rhett and Link. I used to watch these guys all the time back when I was like in 5th grade, dude. Good Mythical Morning was like my jam. Now I'm on my YouTube account, so you wouldn't see that I'm even subscribed to them, but I used to watch all of their videos. My favorite series that they had was the I think it was like the Willet ice cream sandwich or something like that. And then I remember they also had like a the Carolina Reaper taste test, and like they couldn't drink water for 10 minutes, and I was like, dude, that's crazy. But they're still making videos to this day. I mean, it is crazy. If you go to their account and you go to their oldest videos, I'm just how old is it? Yeah, 17 years ago. Look how young these guys are in these videos. I mean, it is just crazy. You can see that they had like their own little podcast studio back then. Anyways, these guys are like OGs. They have just under 20 million subscribers. If you've been on YouTube, like, especially during like the 2012 era, you knew who these guys were because most of their like popular videos were over a decade ago. This is when they were popping off. Will it popsicle? I remember that Will it ice cream sandwich. Yeah, so like I was saying before, the Will it series was really good. Will it taco? Will it deep fry? Will it cereal? But then this is one that I also remember watching. Their most viewed video actually. Um, yeah. Anyways, so these guys were very influential in my childhood, and I think for a lot of other people. And then it came out, I think years ago. I watched some YouTube short where Rhett had mentioned how I think him and Link. Rhett is like the guy with the beard. Link is the clean shaved guy. I don't know if that's a good description because sometimes they both have beards. So this is Rhett. This is Link. I always liked Link more, but I know everyone has like, their own little preferences. Anyways, I know at some point I think they both went on like a podcast and talked about like their own religious beliefs, but Link has been kind of like cut and dry, and I think Rhett has been a lot more um expressive about how he believes or about what he believes because he's constantly gone on and added to what he's already said before. And I remember watching a YouTube reel where he even was realizing in himself he's like I just can't stop talking about Christianity and how much I don't like it. So it was very fair criticism for him to say. So anyways, all that to say, these guys are pretty big people in the YouTube world, especially Rhett. So for him to be very vocal about his problems with Christianity, it'll be very interesting to see what this pastor has to say about all of that because um yeah, it'll just be really interesting. I've only seen bits and pieces of what Rhett has ever said about his criticism with Christianity, but in the words of Josh, I guess he is gaslighting Christians. So, assuming I think they live in California and just that whole area, there's a pretty good chance that Rhett's going to be a more progressive Christian, which I personally have my own disagreements with them on, but we'll see what he means by gaslighting, I think, as we journey on. Anyways, we're only 20 seconds. We're only 26 seconds in, so let's watch a little bit more, and I'll try to talk a little bit less. I like all his merch too. Also, real quick, he keeps calling himself a mega church pastor. So is he just like embracing that? Is he just like, yeah, we have a big church? I mean, if this is just a church, that's a lot of subscribers for a church. 700K. That's 700K more than I have.
How Christians are compromising themselves in politics right now. It's going to be really interesting.
That's interesting. I do think at times Christians do compromise themselves. I don't think they do in politics, but okay, we'll see.
Two things real quick. Want to give you a heads up. These React episodes are kind of a test drive. So like I'm trying to see if this is helpful to you guys and worth the time.
Okay.
So if this is helpful, if you could head over to the YouTube channel and drop.
We already went there. We were one step ahead of the curve, y'all.
A comment that helps us know that it's helpful, and if y'all like it, then we'll keep rolling.
I haven't even watched it, but I'm just gonna say I like it because I will always, I will always support other Christians giving feedback. I think one of the worst problems Christians have is that sometimes they're too afraid to criticize. I think sometimes people can be overcritical, but sometimes people are not critical enough. And so we don't have enough dialect. So anyways, always in support of Christians giving their live and feedback. Keep up the great work. I can't spell, y'all. Hey, if you guys find me, feel free to give me some acknowledgement. We need a whole episode on this discernment alone. Anyways, it looks like this is gonna be a banger, so I'll just subscribe for now. It looks like these guys know what they're doing. So
the other thing I want to say is we are getting out our Live Free Nation hats, and so if you'll drop a comment on the YouTube channel, we're gonna give out 5. We're gonna give
Ooh,
out 5, Trinity. It's
5
gonna be
hats.
awesome.
Hey, I wear hats a lot in this channel. I literally just took mine off because my head was getting itchy. But I do wear a lot of hats, so if you give me one, I'll rep it for you guys.
Give out 5 of these guys. So drop comment there. Okay, let's get into it. So
Cool.
here's what you're about
Sweet.
to see.
Cool. Let's
so if
do
you
it.
don't know who they are, Rhett and Link are enormous YouTubers.
Yeah. I already gave a little introduction, but I think he's going to give his own, which totally makes sense because there might be a lot of you guys who don't even know who these guys are, but I grew up I grew up being a kid, so I watch these guys a lot. Not that their channel's meant for kids, but you can certainly be a kid and be entertained by them.
They've got about 25 million subs across 2 channels on
Jeez.
YouTube. Interestingly, at some point, I may do a quick react video to this. It was about 4 years ago. One or both of these guys had been very outspoken about their faith as a Christ follower, as a Christian. About 4 years ago, they deconstructed their faith, and the Christian term for it is apostatized. They at one point they said they were on Team Jesus, and they're like, "Hey, we're out on Team Jesus." Deconverted, left the faith, and now that's kind of their thing now.
And now we must kill them. No, I'm playing. I'm totally just joking. No, this is something that you do see pretty often. And sometimes it is for good reason. Sometimes people will criticize Christianity and be like, hey, this makes no sense. And so then they'll ask their pastors or their local friends. And sometimes if those pastors or friends aren't very educated, they don't have a very good answer. And so naturally, if you have a problem with something and the people around you aren't giving you good answers, why would you keep following it? You know, in a way, I do empathize with them because I understand that, again, without good teaching, it can be very hard, very, very hard to understand all of Scripture. I mean, what we were just listening to a couple minutes ago with Father Mike, that stuff is kind of complicated to try to understand and wrap your mind around. So, yeah, it goes without saying that, like, I do have compassion for these guys. And what I was doing there a second ago is like a lot of hyperbole because that is what you see sometimes, like within Christians, is like they sometimes act like it's a cult and they're like, who left the church? But the reality is, like, that's not at all the reaction we should have. Because if I was in their shoes and I had the same questions and I also didn't have the answers, I probably too would leave. My main suggestion that I'd give to people around the world who might be dealing with stuff like that is, hey, we have this beautiful source called the internet, and you can find like everything on here. So you can probably find your answer somewhere over there, or at least hear a lot of other people's perspectives on it, and then build your own opinion off of it, which might be what these guys did. But I would question where they got their sources from, because if you're ever doing research and it results in you not wanting to follow Jesus, I would question that, because everything in life points back to Jesus. So yeah, let's keep listening though. This is a very normal thing though. People sometimes will research and come to an unfortunate conclusion.
What you're going to see me do here in the next couple seconds is I want to differentiate something, and really every Christian needs to understand the difference between these two things. If you go read the book of Jude, there's a verse at the end of the book of Jude that says, "Have mercy on those who doubt."
What I just said. Am I Jude? No.
But then, like, half of the book of Jude is Jude taking like a double-barrel shotgun to false teachers that were trying to get other people to doubt.
Yeah, and that's a big distinction. So it's kind of like what I said before. Sometimes you might doubt or be disobedient just because you don't know, But like we saw with Pharaoh, if you do know the right thing from wrong and you still choose the wrong thing, then there's even more punishment upon you, or there is punishment upon you, because now you're going out of your way to disobey God. It's the same thing here. It's one thing if you're like a part of a society that I don't align with, and I don't think that you guys should be doing the things that you're doing. But it's another thing completely if you're someone who knows of Jesus, who knows of God, and you go out of your way to make your own religion and then try to steer other people away and have them join your religion. Like, that is really messed up, because now you're putting other people's lives in jeopardy, their salvation in jeopardy, just for you to have money from them, influence over those people. Like, it's just really evil. So yeah.
So here's the big idea is that...
But I've never read Jude, but I'm assuming his commentary about that is more or less correct. Double barrel shotgun is such a funny analogy. You can tell we're in America.
Christians should have radically different postures towards people who are standing in their faith and wrestling with some doubts to try to keep following Jesus than they should have towards people who are standing in their unbelief and then promulgating.
I'm sorry, I zoned out.
Should have radically different postures towards people who are standing in their faith and wrestling with some doubts to try to keep following Jesus.
Right.
Than they should have towards people who are standing in their unbelief and then promulgating unbelief to try to get other people to move to unbelief.
Yeah, it's true. It's not just people sometimes know the truth. Sometimes people reject the truth, and so it's. I think it talked about this in Romans too, where like if someone is a sinner and is proud in being a sinner, they will oftentimes try to drag other people into their sin. It's like a natural. It's like a natural element of sin, and we see this a lot with pride. Quite literally, they're being prideful in their own sin, and then they're trying to encourage other people to also go into that. So, yeah, that's a very normal thing that I think you can see in day-to-day life.
Belief. So you're going to see me like have a, again, a bit of an edge towards these kind of things. There's a biblical reason for that. We have to differentiate between refugees from the world that stumble into our churches and they're asking legitimate questions about doubt.
Yeah, because sometimes you can ask some people are asking questions in good faith. They genuinely are just trying to figure out the answers. You'll have those people who are sometimes just trying to ask questions, not because they're trying to ask an answer, they're trying to stump a Christian. But sometimes they're like, hey, I'm not trying to stump you. I'm genuinely just asking like a question. And that's super valid.
Because they're like, I don't want to keep doing the world thing. It really stinks out there. Those are refugees from the world. These guys are apostles of the world.
Yeah,
we should have compassion and tenderness towards a doubter. Really, we should be a lot more forceful with people who are trying to get other people to doubt. So, that said, let's see what Rhett and Link have to say about Christians and politics.
So this is specifically about Christians and politics. Okay. This will be a very interesting episode. I have a lot of political opinions. This is not a political show, so I'm not really going to be talking much about my own political opinions on an episode to episode basis. That being said, if it's ever going to get brought up like it is right now, I'll obviously talk about it. I'm not going to shy away from my beliefs. So let's put our thinking caps on, go into this with an open mind, and not be judgmental, but just hear them out, and then in other words, I don't want to just react to this as in like I'm just reacting to a video, so I can just be as harsh as I want. I want to imagine like these guys are genuinely right in front of me, and how I would actually like in a kind and gentle way reason with them. So, yeah, alrighty, let's get started here.
Temptation of Jesus. Of course, he's out there in the wilderness for 40 days. And so there's the three temptations from the devil. The third one, the temptation of Jesus. Of course, he's out there in the wilderness for 40 days. And so there's the three temptations from the devil. The third one being going up to the top of the mountain, saying, look at all the kingdoms of the world. I will give you all of this if you will just bow down and worship me. And of course, Jesus says, be gone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and only him shall you serve. This is pretty wild.
Okay, this is what's really interesting. So what you got right here is you got a guy who is deconverted from Christianity, says he hates Christianity, doesn't believe a single word of the Bible.
Has he said that? Has he said that he hates Christianity and that he doesn't believe every word of the Bible? If so, yeah, it's a pretty big claim that he's making.
But he's really going to make sure that you obey his interpretation of it. Now, here's what you're going to notice.
That is kind of ironic.
You will see this from non-Christian people constantly. It's the guy that you know who hates everything about the Bible, wants to advance every evil cause that's in opposition to the Bible. He couldn't quote one verse from the Sermon on the Mount, but he knows the verse, judge not. And he's going to make sure you don't do it. So here's where this comes from. And at some point, we'll probably do like an entire episode on this. Here's a little homework. If you want to understand what's happening in our nation right now, you need to go read a tiny little book, or you can just grok it and get a quick summary. A book by a guy named Saul Alinsky called Rules for Radicals. Barack Obama years ago said it.
Go buy it, guys. I'm not going to look it up right now, but seems like a good book. Okay. Well, I'm confused. What does this have to do with Rhett? With what he just said? I feel like you're again, you want me to be constructive here. I don't want to just glaze this guy the whole time. he kind of just went on a whole rant right here, and he's not even talking about what Rhett said. Josh, you're going on a whole rant here, sir. Keep talking about what he said. You're going on a whole rant now about a book.
It was like a foundational read for him. It's essentially like a Marxist communist dude that set out, I think it's 11 rules for how to destabilize societies and advance like a godless agenda or cause. Now, his rule number 4, Saul Alinsky's rule number 4, was make the enemy live up to his own book of rules. So this is where you get people who they don't believe Christianity and they hate the Bible, but they're going to demand that you as a Christian obey their wrong interpretation of it. Now, I'm going to show you why people like this are so adamant about keeping Christians out of politics, and I'm going to show you.
I think it's human nature. I think we all believe that we have the correct interpretation. So whenever we talk to someone, we're going to defend what we interpret the Bible as. So part of it could be like demonic schemes, but part of it could also just be that we're all biased. And so, and again, this is me just trying not to alienate Rhett. Like, he might not be crazy. He might just be biased the same way we're all biased. So I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. No pun intended.
The wrong interpretation part of it. Okay, so check this out.
Considering the state of the current American church, because the one opportunity that Jesus has to make a commentary about embracing political power over the kingdom.
Oh, whoopsie daisy. So, in the temptation of Jesus, the commentary that Jesus makes has nothing to do with embracing political power. More on that here in a second.
Oh, I see what Rhett's saying. I was like, how did he get to political power? He's talking about the power that Satan was tempting him with. Okay. I got lost. I was like, what? Okay.
In fact, I'll just say this. There is no way to read about Daniel, Esther, Joseph, Moses, Nehemiah, John the Baptist, and then Jesus is called the King of Kings. That's literally what we call him, the King of Kings. There's no way to read about all those things and then think that it's wrong or sinful for Christians to touch anything political. So you're going to see this in a second. This passage is one of the...
It's actually essential for Christians to be in politics, because that's how we can move out legislature that is in accordance with God's commands. Again, we saw that with the book of Leviticus earlier. That's like half the reason for the book. It's so that everyone in that society can live in accordance to the law, which is good and fruitful for everyone. So yeah, it's very important for Christians to be involved. The whole idea of separation of church and state is ridiculous, in my opinion.
3 passages.
I can understand to a certain extent, like, you don't want to like enforce people to follow Jesus if they don't want to, but like the moral and ethical framework of like Jesus and his teachings are all very sound, or I should say the teachings of God that Jesus spoke to us, but it comes from God the Father.
That non-Christian people use to sort of weaponize against Christians to keep Christians from ever engaging culturally and politically.
Right.
There's a spiritual reason for that. I'll get here in a second. But the commentary that Jesus is making when he rejects Satan's offer of, quote, the kingdoms of the world, is not a commentary on embracing political power. The commentary is about taking it as a present from Satan. That's what he's commenting.
Imagine being able to build an
I don't
app
have
with your name
YouTube
on it
Premium, y'all.
just by thinking about it.
It's okay.
Base 44.
It's already over.
Is presented as a temptation of Satan.
Wait. I want you to hear everything you
Oh,
just
he's
said.
talking to Alex O'Connor. For those who don't know, he's a very well-known atheist. He is a atheist philosopher, I think is his proper term. Anyways, he's on YouTube, and I would love to react to some of Alex O'Connor's content, because it's one thing for me to like sit here and listen to a bunch of Christians, because I'm obviously just gonna like agree with with most of the things that they're saying. But Alex O'Connor would be really fun. I think even challenging for someone like me to get through, because he would be presenting a lot of the counter arguments, and that's more what I'm interested in listening to. But anyways, if you guys want me to react to that, just tell me in the chat and link specific videos.
Is presented as a temptation of Satan.
Wait. I want you to hear everything you just said.
Or the kingdoms of this world. Is presented as a temptation of Satan.
No, that's incorrect. Now, let me.
Yeah, I think this is just interesting. I thought he was on a podcast with like Link or like I don't know. I didn't expect Alex O'Connor. I don't know. I can't believe these guys had a crossover, but it makes sense because they're both like very vocal atheists. So that's so funny.
Let me talk about this real quick. What he's saying is that Jesus rejected the kingdoms of the world in the temptation narrative in Luke chapter 4. And therefore, that taking political power, Jesus reigning and ruling over the kingdoms of this world, is a temptation of Satan. Now, this is one. Here's why.
And again, yeah, and it also doesn't make sense because, like I said before, the laws that the Jewish people had were not just spiritual laws; they were in their own country laws, and so from the beginning, God was involved in politics. You could argue, right? He made laws of things that we could do and couldn't do. Now later, people stopped following God, so they had to make a little distinction between religious laws and legal laws. But at the beginning, those were the same thing. So yeah, this whole idea that you can't have political power doesn't even exist, because a lot of people had political power, especially in the early days when they were like the head of their tribes and whatnot. So
you need to get your head around this. This is one of 3 passages that non-Christian people lob at Christians constantly, and
Really?
well-meaning but naive Christians who have embraced constantly, and well-meaning but naive Christians who have embraced secular narratives. These are one of 3 passages that they'll use to say Christians need to stay out of politics. The 3 passages are...
yeah, it's a really silly example. At least this one is, because to me it doesn't make any sense. It's very obvious that he's rejecting Satan, not the political power. In the same way, didn't he like tempt Jesus to like jump from like a hill, and then Jesus said not to test God? In other words, when Satan was like, but he can save you and he can like heal you, it's like, yeah, and that comes from God. That doesn't mean that being healed spiritually is a bad thing, or some supernatural thing heals you physically, that's an evil thing. It just means that when you're tapping into other spiritual things that could do that, that's demonic. In the same way here, it's the exact same logic. The actual temptation is not what's evil. It's who are you getting that temptation from? That's the main thing here.
That they'll use to say Christians need to stay out of politics. The 3 passages are, you've got Jesus that prays, that says, "My kingdom is not of this world." So people will...
Which is true. Right? Countries will never represent Christianity. It's why Christians should never align themselves with a political party, because political parties are just man-made. They don't mean anything. I mean, they mean something, but I mean, in retrospect, like in the 1980s, being a Republican or a Democrat meant 2 very different things than what they mean now. And I'm sure in 2080, they'll mean very different things than what they mean today. So Christianity, however, never changes. You'll start to notice pretty quickly when you study Christianity that most things, laws, political parties, all that stuff's always changing, like trends, like clothing trends, hair trends. But one of the only things that always remains the same, besides like scientific inquiry, is our understanding of theology. It's pretty cut and dry. So, yeah.
Will tell you as a Christian, hey, Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world." So why are you trying to advance the kingdom of this world?
Yes, again, that is true, but it's also true that like having a Christian nation is a good thing. Passing Christian legislature is a good thing. I mean, why would Jesus not want us to pass Christian laws? it doesn't make any sense. He was just saying that he himself wasn't like a political leader. He was like, I myself am the Messiah. I came here to save everyone. It doesn't matter what country you're from or what race you are or what gender you are. That's what he meant by that. He wasn't here to achieve political power. And he was also reiterating that because the Romans were like, "Are you here to like conquer us?" And he was like, "No, dude. Like, I'm talking about something way beyond this."
Jesus did say his kingdom was not of this world. Jesus also prayed for his kingdom to come on earth as it is in heaven.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And again, kingdom meaning the church, not like some country.
When Jesus said his kingdom was not of this world, he wasn't saying, I never want anything about my kingdom to come to this world. He was
Right.
saying its origin point is in heaven. And now you need to pray, live, and act in such a way that my kingdom comes on earth as it is.
I will say though, this guy Josh, he has that, respectfully, he has that very like like that very cringe way of speaking. It's like a very stereotypical pastor way of speaking. I said it earlier, but just the way he expresses himself is like he's trying to act very professional, and I can tell he's like I can tell that this isn't how he would talk when he's like at home with like his wife. I just feel like he needs to be more chill. A lot of pastors are like this, and it's why sometimes people can't feel like they can relate to pastors because they talk like they're a professor, and it's like, bro, just talk normally.
Is in heaven, and yes, that includes in the political and governmental realm. The other passage that people will often use to gaslight Christians to keep them out of cultural and political engagement is where Jesus.
That's interesting. I guess you could say that they are gaslighting. But I don't know. Does there need to be intent in order to gaslight? Maybe I'm getting very semantical here, but I feel like there usually needs to be like intention. Like you're intentionally gaslighting someone. But maybe not. Maybe you are unintentionally gaslighting someone. Which is what he's saying here. I don't think I would say that word just because it sounds very provocative. But I guess technically, yeah, they are gaslighting. But I wonder if intent is needed. Someone can search that up. Let me know.
Says, give to Caesar what's Caesar's and give to God what's God's.
Right.
Now, that passage
In other words, even if you're a Christian, pay your taxes and follow the laws of your country.
It means the exact opposite of what people say that it means. If you go back to that passage, what you're going to notice is Jesus looks at the Pharisees. They're talking about whether or not they should pay taxes to Caesar. And he says something very interesting. He makes them pick up a coin, and he says, whose likeness and inscription is on the coin? And they say Caesar's. And then he says, well, then give to Caesar what's Caesar's and give to God's what's God's. Now, this is amazing. What he was doing is he was like Jedi mind tricking them.
Which is a very good point because you realize how little power money has in the grand scheme of the world, right? When they're lifting up Caesar as this great figure, and then he's like, I mean, yeah, like this little coin, this belongs to him, but the rest of the world belongs to God. Like, in other words, God is in control of everything. Caesar is really only in control of what Rome is in control of. If you were to teleport Caesar to like Africa, all of a sudden he's just a random guy. All of his money and influence doesn't mean a thing. So it's a very interesting thing. But again, now he's talking like a pastor, where he's trying to like include cultural references, like Jedi mind tricking, as a way to like make us think that he's cool. And I'm not trying to like diss this guy. He's saying really good stuff. I just think every now and then that cringy pastor behavior comes out, and I'm like, dude.
What he was doing is he was like Jedi mind tricking them. He was like judoing them. Because
Judoing?
Those Pharisees would have known that in the book of Genesis, watch this, God put his...
Bro, just say it. Don't say, watch this. Just keep talking.
...likeness and inscription on mankind.
That's a good point.
He, quote, created mankind in his image.
And likeness.
So here was the point. He was saying everyone everywhere that bears the image of God must bend their knee to God. Guess who that includes? Caesar.
Yeah.
So Jesus is implying in that passage, Caesar belongs to God, and every king on this earth must bend his knee to the Lord.
That's actually great. And maybe it's a very common commentary, but I haven't read too much commentary on that specific passage. But Josh, that's a great interpretation. That actually makes a lot of sense, and that is pretty like Jedi mind tricking. No, that is a very great way of putting it. Like he was in a cryptic way telling them to bow down to God. It's pretty good. And you're right. The Pharisees who he was talking to would have understood that, or they could have pieced it together at least.
Jesus, because every king on this earth bears the likeness, image, and inscription
That's
of
great.
Jesus Christ. Now, let's go to this passage, and let's do a little theology really quick. So what Rez says right here is that the temptation was to take political power, and it was a temptation of Satan. No. The sin was not in taking political power. In fact, think about the other two temptations.
And if we want, let's see how long the video is. We could try reacting to Rhett's. Oh, maybe not. Well, they had two different videos, but oh, jeez. This is just too long. We could in a separate live stream, but I'll even add these, to watch later. Cause I would like to watch them, but I think these would be like their own live stream, just reacting to this. Because with how much I yap, it would be a whole thing. But we can watch this one. It's only 18 minutes long. That's like half of this length, so we can watch it afterwards. Christian nationalists have betrayed Jesus. That's a pretty bold claim. So we'll have to look more into that after this.
One of the temptations was, hey, command these stones to become bread and eat this bread, and it's going to be awesome. Okay,
it's going to be awesome. Hold on. I dropped my phone. All right. How long have we been streaming for? An hour and a half. Okay. We will go for another 15 minutes, and then I will take a quick break, and I'll get back with you guys.
Don't say. What we don't say is things like, well, eating was a temptation.
Right.
So Christians shouldn't eat.
Right.
Bread was a temptation. So Christians should go carnivore. No, that's not what anybody says. In all three temptations, the temptation, listen, was to take a...
Bro, don't tell me listen. Just keep talking. It's the pastor. It's the way the pastors talk sometimes.
Good thing and acquire it the wrong way. That's the temptation. In fact, all three things Satan tempts Jesus with are explicitly good things.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what I was saying before. Like healing. That's actually a good thing. If you get supernaturally healed, it's not the thing. It's who you're getting it from, and that's the nature of Satan. Most of the times, the things he's telling you aren't even like outright lies. They're half truths. So there actually is some truth in there that you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. But it's the other part that he's trying to twist you on. Cause it's like most things. It's like when you try to when you try to radicalize someone into a political ideology or anything of that nature. It usually starts with very small things, and if you can agree to those small things, then they kind of not like, what's the word? I don't want to say like they don't like breed you. That sounds weird, but like, or groom you, but they kind of in a way do kind of build you up to then do or believe bigger, more radical things, but they start you off small. So
food that God has created to be received with thanksgiving. Jesus was tempted with everyone exalting him and recognizing that he was the Son of God, and Jesus is tempted with taking the kingdoms of the world through demonic means. Okay, so the temptation was to get the right thing in the wrong way.
Sorry, I misspoke. I'm in at 5 o'clock. I'll take a break, so I still got some time. I misspoke there.
An Escalade isn't a sin. Doing OnlyFans to get money for an Escalade is a sin. That's kind of what's going on.
That's what I was saying earlier too, right? Of like, you can be a millionaire, but people can become millionaires in very different ways. So the way you do it is really what matters here. Not that millionaires are evil, but well, how did you become a millionaire? Did you do a great thing for the world, or were you just being some sort of like degenerate or taking advantage of someone else?
So if the whole goal is the lordship of Jesus over all the kingdoms of this world, his name is literally the King of Kings. Now, let me explain what's going on in this passage, and then let's move on here. What you've got in this passage is very interesting because Satan, again, he offers Jesus and tempts him with the kingdom of this world. So here's the theology, okay? This is a little theological review.
Okay.
If you trace the theology of dominion in the Bible, dominion gets transferred through a series of entities. When God creates everything, God obviously has dominion over everything at the beginning of Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when God creates Adam and Eve, as quote theologians call them the vice regents of creation, that's how God created them, to rule and reign through them. So then God delegates authority and delegates dominion to Adam and Eve. That's why he gives them what's called the cultural mandate. Go and cultivate the earth and subdue it. So he's saying, bring all of this, every square inch of the universe, under my lordship. You have delegated dominion.
At least the world, yeah.
Then Adam and Eve sin, watch this, and then when they sin, dominion over all the earth is lost to Satan. This, by the way, is why when Jesus is tempted by Satan and Satan tells Jesus, I can give you all the kingdoms of the world, Jesus does not say, no, you can't. Jesus is tacitly acknowledging, actually, Satan at this point does have dominion over all the kingdoms of this world. Now, here's what gets really interesting. When Jesus comes to earth, his entire goal is to buy back the dominion over the kingdoms of this world from Satan, and then he gives them to his disciples. So what's happening right here, so Red has just said that, taking the kingdoms of this world was a temptation of Satan. No. In fact, in Mark 3, Jesus says, nobody can enter a strong man's house without first tying him up. Then he can plunder the strong man's house. So in Mark 3, what he's saying is that Satan is the strong man.
Mm-hmm.
All the kingdoms of this world are currently in his house. And Jesus was saying, I'm the one who's going to come. I'm going to bind the strong man. I'm going to bind the devil. That's why the book of Revelation says that Jesus bound Satan. That's why it says that. He's saying, I'm going to bind the strong man. And then Jesus is saying, and then I'm going to take all your stuff. And that includes every throne and every kingdom in this world. So Jesus is actually explicitly saying, I'm going to take all these kingdoms from you.
And we saw this on a much more micro level in Exodus when we saw that God was punishing Pharaoh. Jesus is talking about this in a much more macro perspective of like not just Egypt. I mean, the whole world is going to go under his lordship.
But I'm not going to take them as a gift from you. I'm going to get them on my own through my disciples. That's why, by the way, in Matthew 28, Jesus turns around to his disciples and he says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations. Why did he say that? He's saying, I've bound the strong man. Now all the authority is mine. Now, together with my disciples, let's go take all his stuff. All the nations belong to us. Let's go bring them under my lordship. Now, will say, even though he's a little extra with it right here, there is a lesson for Christians in this, is that the way that we take the kingdoms of this world is through conversion, through the ministry of the word and the church, not through compromise with the devil. So we do not take power via sinful and demonic means.
Right.
Okay. Now,
We don't make deals with the devil. Yeah.
let's keep going.
This is presented as a temptation of Satan to fall for this. We've got to be in control of the kingdoms of the world. Does Jesus say, well, okay, maybe you're in charge right now, but you just wait until a few of my followers are in government, or you wait until we're in charge? Again, he says, it's not about that.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, it is, because without that explicit thing, we wouldn't even have churches. We wouldn't even have laws to protect people to read the Bible. So he did mean that, because if not, we all would be persecuted already. if it wasn't for Christian laws set in place to protect us.
Yeah, it is about that. It's about
So I can see why you say gaslighting now. I can understand that.
establishing the lordship of Christ over all things and making him, establishing the reality of him as King of Kings. It is about that. Abraham Kuyper, there is not one square inch of this universe over which Christ does not stand and cry, mine. It is about that.
And it just blows my mind that we've gotten to this place where this seems to be the way that the kingdom of God is going to be established, is by infiltrating and taking over the government. And
We're not infiltrating. It's the other way around. They have been infiltrating. Christians have been in the government since the beginning of humanity.
Now, okay, here's what you got to watch out for. Listen to his language. By, quote, infiltrating and taking over the government. Ooh, it's very scary sounding. Okay, so here's the big idea. Again, we go back to this all the time on Live Free. This old school high school debate team. Whoever controls the terms wins the debate. It's called choice architecture. It's when somebody manipulates the way that choices are presented to you to force you to their desired outcome. It's kind of like when somebody says, hey, man, are you, I could give some examples. I won't do that. But here's the big idea. So he says,
No, yeah, I mean, the idea would be like let's say your friend made a hot dog, and you were in between eating their hot dog they're really proud that they made, and like some burger that's just like frozen in the freezer. They might use persuasive language like, well, do you want that old, crusty, nasty burger, or do you want this like nice, fresh, warm hot dog? Right? It's like, well, you're using adjectives. You know, you're using words to try to make one seem a lot better than the other one. So I get what he's saying.
Trading and taking over the government is what Christians want to do. Here's what you're going to notice with people like this. When godless people, quote, infiltrate and take over the government, well, that's just how a democracy works. Elections have consequences, guys. But when godly people do it, ooh, it's scary, sinful, infiltrating and taking over the government. So we just need to have a theology. This is Christians. Yes. Christians should, let me just say it in a straightforward way. Yes. Christians should 100% be trying to win the culture war and establish Christian people in positions of power and Christian principles as the standpoint of our nation. Again, here's what it all goes back to. It's not, in the words of Doug Wilson, it's not whether, but which. The question is not whether some worldview is going to guide our nation. The question is which worldview. The question is not whether,
because there will always be a worldview. Yeah.
Morality is going to be imposed through government.
Which morality?
The question is whose morality is going to get imposed. What we should want as Christians, what we're saying to our nation is, let's do the morality. Let's do the morality that doesn't invite the judgment and the wrath of God, which our nation, very frankly, is currently under. Go read Romans 1. Okay, so Christians should be doing this. Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked rule, the people groan. Okay, now, so so he's saying Christians shouldn't infiltrate and take over the government. So let me just flip it really quick. The temptation for Christians right now is not to be involved in politics, culture, society. In the net temptation that is very frequently dealt with in our culture from Satan is to keep Christians out of those realms. Mm-hmm. So what you're going to notice is, read your Bible, you're going to notice this, that whatever God creates, Satan tries to capture. So we go back to this all the time at Live Free. God has created 3 institutions to establish good order and lordship in the world: the family, the church, and the state. What you'll notice is that in all 3 jurisdictions, whatever God creates, Satan tries to capture. So go back to Genesis 2 and 3. God creates the family. Adam stands passively by. He refuses to lead his wife and his family. So Satan steps forward and he goes, if you won't lead your family, I'll be happy to. Let me just say this to all the dads listening. If you won't lead your family, Satan will be happy to.
Did he just go country there? Did he just change his accent to a country accent? To a country accent? No, I mean, but that's a very great example. Yeah, it's true. in the same way, like if you don't, the thing I always like say to people is like, if you don't raise your kids, the streets will, you know, or someone else will. Someone will raise your kids though. Yeah.
Then let's think about the church. In Revelation chapter 2, you've got a church that with passive pastors and passive elders, that they, instead of leading the church to repent of sin, they were, quote, tolerating sin. And exactly what happens there. The elders wouldn't lead the church, so Satan.
Sorry, I was gonna say, y'all. We are going to save this one as well. So he has 2 accounts, more Alex O'Connor. Maybe we can take a look at this later. As well. But I'm gonna go ahead and just save all of these because I do want to change things up a little bit. But we'll get to that when the time comes. For now, let's just go ahead and finish this. I do want to have a at the end of the day, I'd like to have more of a little gaming live stream where we still talk about Christianity, but I also just play some video games to just help you guys be a little bit more engaged, if that helps. And it helps me kind of take a little break from such intensive work. So although we didn't get to too much like strict studying today, I think it'll be fine. So anyways, let's just finish up this video, and I'm gonna take a little personal break, and then yeah, and then I'm gonna set up my whole little setup for gaming, and then I'll be back.
Steps forward and he leads it. He's like, you.
Actually, while I do that, I will be right back. Give me 1 second, guys. Alrighty, guys, we are back. Hello, hello. All right, so yeah, we're just gonna finish up this last reaction video, and then I have it somewhere here. I think I dropped it also. I didn't notice it. And then we're gonna get into our gaming section for the second half of it. But again, we'll get to all that in a little bit. I kind of just thought about it spontaneously. I was like, you know, we should have a gaming section. So, yep. Alrighty. Anyways, hey, make sure you guys can hear me. Yeah. Okay. We are good to go. Let's finish up this reaction video because it's pretty good stuff. But I want to get back to it later because Rhett is bringing up a bunch of good points. But again, it just takes a long time to get through all of it.
You won't lead it, I'll be happy to. The exact same thing happens with the state. When you have passive Christians who have gotten gaslit by weird, bad, secular influenced Bible teaching to stay out of politics. Hey guys, check this out. If godly people won't engage in the political, cultural, societal realm, godless people will. So, very frankly, that right there is how a nation that was once about 90% Bible-believing Christians has been led by overt wickedness and godlessness in that direction for the last century or so. What you got right now is secularism is discipling people into political activity, and Christians are, and pastors sometimes, are discipling their people into political passivity. This is a whole different thing. Every election, about 40 to 50 million Bible-believing evangelical Christians don't vote.
That's
that
crazy.
right there. If Christians did their job, then this wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's actually crazy.
So last thing I'll say is what you have to understand. If you read your Bible, what you're going to notice, Satan literally targets the thrones. Satan targets thrones. It's like, honestly, it's like a little Game of Thrones. If you go back to why Satan got kicked out of heaven, he looked at God on a throne and he went, I want that throne.
Yeah.
Then when he comes down to earth, guess what he targets? He's
Thrones.
always targeting thrones.
That's true.
Over kingdoms.
Yeah.
This is why you have overtly demonic power over Egypt in the Old Testament, over Babylon in the Old Testament. Fast forward to the book of Revelation, and you've got Satan in bed with the government once again. He's occupying thrones. This is why in Ephesians, I think chapter 6, it specifically says that what demonic powers target are, it says principalities, powers, and spiritual forces of evil in high places. So here's what Christians got to get their head around. Guys, Satan is actively trying to get control of all the thrones.
Right.
So when Christians and pastors say things like Christians should just stay out of politics, guess who's not saying that? Team Satan. Team Satan. So we should be trying to usher in the lordship of Christ, yes, into every aspect of society, including politics. Let's keep going.
And I'm not just saying that it's not a good idea from a Christian perspective.
That's literally what you are.
This kills me. From a Christian perspective, I'm not a Christian, but you should totally listen to my Christian perspective. Yeah.
I'm saying it is forbidden. I think it's worth noting.
It's not forbidden. Yeah, it's not. It's not. He's lost me. Rhett has lost me on this.
Forbidden. We just covered that. It's actually commanded.
Yeah.
That the more that Christians have embraced this pursuit of political power, the more they have embraced political leadership that looks a lot less like Jesus and a lot more like the devil himself.
Yeah, this cracks me up. So first of all, you got a guy right here who's like, I totally reject Jesus, but you should really obey the Jesus that I don't even think is a thing. Okay, what you got? So here's what's happening is these guys.
No, I don't think he's. I think what's happening here is Rhett thinks that he has the correct interpretation of Jesus, and so he's trying to help us follow that same Jesus. I don't think he's rejecting Jesus and then telling us to still follow him. I think he thinks he has the correct interpretation, like I said at the very beginning of this reaction.
Gaslighting you. The reason I'm covering this right now is it's a midterms year in 2026. You're going to get this constantly. So let me help you understand this. What he's doing is he's gaslighting you so that think about this. If you listen to him, you're being gaslit so that the only option available left to you is to let them elect leaders who are going to advance evil. That's what they're doing.
That's true. If they can silence the Christian population, then they win the vote.
It's intentional gaslighting, so that for you as a Christian, you got to stay on the sidelines and just let us advance evil while you just watch us do it. So what this goes back
That's
to,
true.
so did you notice this? I'm going to play it for you one more time. Listen to his language, because you're going to get this thrown in your face constantly. Okay, listen real close to how he words this.
It looks a lot less like Jesus and a lot more this pursuit of political power. The more noting that the more that Christians have embraced this pursuit of political power, the more they have embraced political leadership that looks a lot less like Jesus and a lot more like the devil himself.
Whoopsie daisy. Okay, so again, you're being gaslit. So what this comes back to is a theology.
Can we get a gaslit counter chat? Can someone go through this and let me know how many times Josh used the word gaslighting? It's just funny. He in a way he is gaslighting, but I feel like he's being honest. He's just really misinformed.
And an understanding of what voting is. So again, here's the big idea: is a selection is not a sacrament. A sacrament is something like the Lord's Supper, where it's like, man, we don't want any impurity in a sacrament whatsoever, and in a sacrament we shouldn't.
That's not exactly what sacrament means. Sacrament means something is irreversible. Now, obviously, there can be things that are irreversible that aren't sacraments. Like someone dying isn't a sacrament, but it is irreversible. In most contexts. Obviously, there's some times where that isn't true, but you get what I mean. So that's why Catholics would say that things like marriage are sacraments, because you can't reverse a marriage. People like myself would say that you can undo a marriage. But anyways, all that to say, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of lost my train of thought. But he was talking about sacraments, but he didn't describe it very well. Most Protestants can't describe sacraments very well. So it's just the idea that once you do this spiritual ritual, it is permanent and forever.
What guys like this do is they want to force you to think of voting like a voting selection is a sacrament. So if you vote for somebody that has any impurity in their life at all, well, you're betraying your Christian faith.
Which is obviously ironic, because no one will ever be Jesus. So everyone will have impurities. And that might be the problem with people like Rhett, is they're constantly looking for that candidate or that spokesperson who has no impurities. And because they can never find one, they think that they're all flawed, including the church, because every pastor, every priest has flaws. The problem with people like Rhett is they place their faith in people, individuals, instead of in Jesus. Joe Rogan talked about this too, about how he used to hate Christianity because of all the impurities within the Christian faith. And as he got older, he started to realize, well, wait a minute. It's not God who's doing those evil things, though. It's people who betray other people. So, same thing here. Yeah, you can't vote for representative and then say, well, that defines everything that you are. Like, no. The same way I can support a lot of things that aren't 100% good all the time. For example, I might be a fan of a certain sports team, and if, one day that sports team does something really messed up, that doesn't define all their fans. Or an easier example is like, if a certain fan who represents a certain sports team does something really bad, that doesn't represent the entire fan base, right? Even though we all are there for the same reasons. In the same way, this happened just like a couple days ago. Long story short, some kid at my girlfriend's college really misbehaved during a political rally, but that student doesn't represent the entire student body. In fact, he represents a very small amount of them who acted in such a nasty way. So, yeah.
But voting, a selection is not a sacrament. Voting is simply choosing the best available option to you. Okay, so here's what you need to get your head around, especially in 2026 as we head into midterm election year. You're going to get this blitzed for the next year. When you go to the Bible, what you're going to notice is there's three types of leaders. You've got Josiah leaders who are righteous leaders trying to advance righteous causes. Josiah is the king in the Old Testament. He rediscovers the book of the law, bends his knee to the lordship of Jesus, leads the entire nation in national repentance and revival. He was the type of leader that every mom in Israel could be like, son, I hope.
Real quick, because she can't hear me, my girlfriend has her headphones on. Girlfriend, she's like dusting the house for me and cleaning the dishes. Girlfriend, I didn't even ask her to do that. She's just great.
you grow up and be like Josiah someday. Righteous leader advancing righteous causes. Now, on the other hand, you have not Josiah leaders, you have Jezebel leaders. And these are unrighteous leaders advancing unrighteous causes. Jezebel and Ahab were like, they're called by the Old Testament as the most wicked leaders the nation ever had. They encouraged the nation towards child sacrifice and open degradation and perversion. They shut down all the churches. They canceled and killed all the prophets. Any of that sound familiar in the last 5 years?
Yeah. That's
So
true.
these are unrighteous leaders advancing unrighteous things.
Because, and before anyone goes, before this becomes some like warfare in the comments about like certain words, it has less to do with people being quote unquote canceled and more just like the nature behind canceling someone. The nature behind canceling someone is basically this person has passed a threshold where they can no longer really receive forgiveness. They just need to be rot. They just need to rot away in a jail and die. And that is just completely anti-Christianity. Anything that is even in the realm of unforgiveness is like in complete contradiction with what Jesus says. Because we need to always extend forgiveness towards everyone if they're truly being repentant, if they're truly being apologetic.
Now, where a lot of Christians get tripped up is they think, oh man, there's only two types of leaders, either a Josiah or a Jezebel. And if somebody's not a Josiah, then they're a Jezebel, so I can't vote for them.
Which is not true.
But in the Old Testament, you've got a third type of leader. There's like a dude.
Which is like a lot of times like how friendships are and most relationships that you have with like, people in general. No one's really like the perfect guy, but they're not also all very terrible. They just have their flaws, but they're still good friends.
Named Jehu. And Jehu was a flawed leader that was used to do net positive things for the nation. He's the one that casts down Jezebel. He's the one that destroys a bunch of the little sacrifice areas to Baal, the little altars to Baal. Eliminates a lot, not completely.
Is it Baal or Baal? You guys let me know. I've heard different pronunciations of it.
But eliminates a lot of pagan idol worship. So he's a super flawed dude. So he's a flawed leader that's used to do some good things. Now, with those three things in mind, you as a Christian, you need this paradigm in your head. Two things we don't want to do. Number one, we don't want to treat a Jehu leader like a Josiah leader. We don't want to pretend that a flawed leader is some moral paragon and defend every past and present aspect of their character. We don't want to do that.
Right.
But here's the other thing we don't want to do. If the choice in front of us is between a Jezebel leader that's an unrighteous person advancing unrighteous causes like infant murder, the redefinition of marriage, transing a bunch of kids, gender mutilation, using the government school system to indoctrinate everybody's kids.
Whoa, he just went there. He just went to all the controversial stuff. I mean, I don't disagree with him on any of that. I'm unapologetic too, but he just went straight there. That's crazy. I love it. That's funny. That's great.
To unbelief and godless viewpoints of education, all the things. If the choice is between a Jezebel and a Jehu, that should be pretty dang obvious for every Christian, okay? So again, what you got to go back to, and this is, Rhett's trying to gaslight this, and you'll get thrown at this, a lot of you.
It's there
You're
again.
getting gaslit. Voting is just the ability to pick the best available path forward.
Right. If especially in this country, when you only have two options, bro, it's like you can't judge anyone for voting for someone who has a bad past, because it's like, well, they're the only one who represents my values. I've heard plenty of people say that, a bunch of conservatives, when they're criticized for voting for Trump, who has all this criminal history and just, questionable things that he said in the past. And then they're like, listen, I'm voting for him because he represents my values better than the other candidates do. But don't get me wrong, if you had like any other conservative instead of Trump, I would have voted for them instead of Trump. So.
And when you as a Christian vote for whichever set of policies best slows societal decay, you are not, quote, embracing the character and every action of what political leader you voted for. You're voting for policies, not personalities, because personalities come and go, but policies last generations, my friends. Okay. So again, what you should be thinking when you as a Christian are approaching choices like this, I probably should have done this react closer to the midterms, is Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount said, hey, you are the salt of the earth. Notice this. He didn't say you're the salt of the church. He didn't just say, hey, keep this, your little thing inside the church. He said, you're the salt of the earth.
Because the church is always going to be inside of a country, right? A country is not going to be inside of a church, obviously, but churches are always inside of countries. So if you're not careful with making sure that laws are there to protect Christians, those churches can get taken down. That's why he said, yeah, you're the salt of the earth, not of just the church. He's completely right.
Salt was a preservative whose goal is to slow decay. So what you as a Christian should be doing is you should be advocating for political leadership, whichever set of policies best slows societal decay and lawlessness.
That's great.
That's what you should be doing. So in response to old Rhett here, what Rhett is saying is that the church is getting more political, as all Live Free Nation listeners know. That is not what's happening. The church is not getting more political. Politics are getting more theological and spiritual.
Oh, okay. I have to think about that. I don't know if I agree with that or not. That's a really interesting perspective. I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. That's an interesting perspective. Okay.
When the government in the last few decades moved past things like building roads, issuing driver's licenses, and teaching math, to things like redefining marriage, erasing gender, reframing things like infant murder as a moral positive of reproductive rights, and then using the government school system to indoctrinating everybody's kids and grandkids into believing those things. Hey guys, the church didn't move. Politics did.
That's fair. That's super fair.
I'm very sorry, Rhett. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. We keep moving.
I didn't understand that reference at the end. Great video. Shout out MacBook. Looks like we're all using MacBooks. Wow, he has a lot of juicy stuff here. I'll have to look more into it later. All right, ladies and gentlemen. That has been my first stream. So hope you guys enjoyed. You see my super live chat. It's literally just been me the entire time, but if anything, this will be a funny thing to look back to later in life and be like, look how small my stream used to be. Anyways, that was our theological heavy stream. Our next stream will start in about maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so. We're going to go just for another like 2 or 3 hours. And same thing, it's gonna be theology related, but we're going to be doing some more gaming just to spice some things up. So with all that being said, I will catch you all in the next video. And if you guys ever want me to play certain games, let me know, because I kind of just play whatever's popular / whatever I'm used to. But if you guys are like, bro, you need to try this game out, let me know. So, all right, with that being said, I will let you all go.